Welcome back, everybody. Today we do some more fun things with RX7. So I know it's been an exciting roller coaster ride to this point, but it's going to get even better. Today I'm going to skip down the list a little bit, and we're going to go right to the fuel lines. I was looking at the kind of like the order of how things are going to get completed, and I really want to get the top of the engine done. So the only way I can really do that is to just pretty much get the fuel lines set up, the fuel pressure regulator, which I'll show you in a second, get that set up, and basically just get ready to go so we can pop the upper intake manifold on and move on to bigger and better things. So here we go. All right, so let's kind of dig into this, and we'll do a little overview of essentially how we're going to get this worked out here. So there's a couple things I'm going to do. Really what this is going to be about is installing the fuel pressure regulator. And if you notice, I am running the stock rails. I did some research on basically what I have to do to achieve higher horsepower safely. And from what I found, the stock rails will be fine. I just have to make sure the fittings are tight and nothing is degraded, so nothing leaks. So one thing I've noticed when kind of messing around with the fuel rail is the fuel injectors on the secondary rail is held in by screws, and those screws really sucked to get out. I mean, I had to tap a screwdriver in there, and it's just I don't think it's a good place to put a Phillips head screwdriver or Phillips head screw. So I went down to Osh and I got myself some new hardware, so I'll show you about that too. Also, kind of looking at forums, I noticed that that's a common question that people have is hardware. Where do I get hardware? How do I find it? What size is what? So I'll kind of show you what I did too. It's not that difficult, honestly, to figure out what kind of hardware you need to get. You really just need to find something that, some kind of substitute hardware to make sure you have the threads right and things. And there's also gauges you can buy, and of course measuring. It's all part of it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to essentially have to take off the the primary rail. The primary rail is the really short piece right here with these two injectors going into it. And as you can see, it's weird that's the primary, but then this really long rail is the secondary, but that's just how it works. At the same time, I'm going to double check the injectors. I'm fairly certain that those are upgraded injectors, and I'll need to get the flow and rate information, which should be printed on them, in order to program the Apexi FC controller. Okay, just to give you guys an idea what we're going to do here, we're going to have to go ahead and remove the secondary rail, which is this big one here. So you would think that this would be the primary because it's big, but the primary is down here. And then it has a fuel pressure dampener that comes off of it. So basically this is, it's kind of hard to see down here, but this is actually the stock fuel pressure regulator. So I'm not going to really over engineer this. I'm just going to simply take that off and replace it. I've heard the dampener actually helps with spikes and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave it on for now, and then once this thing's up and running, if it has issues, maybe I'll just replace this whole entire thing with the aftermarket. But for now, basically the fuel comes in here, goes in the primary, comes around, comes back out, fuel pressure regulator goes down to the return. So basically what I'm going to do is take this off and then see if I can basically change the fittings on this side once I take the fuel pressure regulator off, and then see if I can essentially attach and fittings to that. I know that there is aftermarket fittings that you can put on that, but I'm going to see if I can modify it first, and if I can't, then I'll just end up going that route. But you know, at least I can't say I didn't try. So let's give it a shot. Alright, so I just wanted to take a moment to show you what kind of hardware we're going to be putting in this. I bought this off of, obviously I've opened it already, but I bought this from Summit online, and where I live, it's kind of cool. I think I ordered it at 4 p.m. and I literally had it the next day, like at noon. So I guess I'm really close to one of their main distribution sites, but they, pretty speedy. So the reason I bought this, I've never heard of an AFPR one, first of all, but it was their discounted or lower price fuel pressure regulator. And I think for the most part, you know, I looked at some ratings on it, and people said it worked quite well. And of course, you can buy the Aeromotive. Holly makes one. There's a lot of people make them. But honestly, I didn't really feel comfortable buying the, you know, the $30 FPRs from like eBay. So I figured Summit's a little more, you know, trustworthy, I guess you could say, as far as their products go and things like that, versus buying something that comes directly from China. This probably did come from China too, but actually I don't know. As you can see, I don't see really where it's made, but you know, these things are pretty standard, right? So you have your adjustment on top. This is where you're going to be increasing and lowering your static fuel pressure. This is your vacuum line that goes to your intake manifold that sets the vacuum pressure. And then you have an inlet, it has 2 inlets, and it has 1 outlet. Okay? So basically what this is doing is it's going to take the return from the existing fuel setup into the inlets here, and then the new return line will come out of here, go back to the tank. So what that does is just basically, it's like there's a diaphragm in here that kind of creates a stopping point so that it regulates the pressure. So stopping meaning pressure can't go up too high and it can't too low. It creates a constant back pressure for the system, kind of keeps it in place. Now with this, there was some fittings that came with it in the bag, some rando instructions in case anybody didn't know what they were doing. And then of course it came with the fuel gauge, which is kind of cool. Other fuel pressure regulators I found didn't come with the gauge. It was, you know, another component you had to buy. So this came with it. I think it was around, I want to say $80. So I figured, what the hell? So basically this will screw into this little port here. We'll just have to take that out, put some Teflon tape on this, and then this will be ready to go. So I just put all these on here because I was kind of test fitting the wiring harness to make sure it actually works. I'm kind of laying out where I was going to route the wires. That's actually one of the main issues I've had since when I started this project, is outside of you know, pictures and stuff you find on the internet, I haven't had any reference points. You know, it's different, I think, if you take something apart, and then if you take it apart and you neglect to like take pictures of stuff to see how hoses and wires and things go. If you don't do that, well, I mean, you have to learn your lesson, I guess. But I started with the engine bay, so it's a little different. And then, of course, going single turbo in itself, it's easier. I think more simple, but like I said, if you don't have a starting point where things were, then you're just kind of like, I don't know, hoping for the best. So, move that down there. That's where you store your extra spare filters. If yours doesn't have that, then you might want to talk to the guy that sold it to you. So, I'll replace the screws. I was going to replace this screw, this one. I actually bought, like I said earlier, I bought the hex sockets there. And then this one down here. I'm going to take it out anyway because I just want to double check the CCs. I believe these are about 1200 and these are maybe 600. I don't remember. It's something like that. So I'll basically take these out first and then disconnect this line, the return line, and then I'll probably take this banjo fitting off too, which probably is a crush washer, which means I need to buy that to put it back together. So I believe this is either a 10 or 12. Everything's 10 or 12. It's 12. Alright, so let me work on getting this off, this off, this off, and then we'll take this off. Alright. Time to bring out the heavy guns. So like I said, this was a pain in the ass to get off. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here, and then what I'll do is I'm going to knock it in here, just make sure it's seated. And then hopefully it comes off. There it goes. I didn't even have to say by the power of Grayskull. Did I tell you guys you were going to get jokes? I forgot if I told you that. So this one you can actually see someone has had issues getting it off before. So let's hope for the best. It's not even that solid in there. Nope, it's already stripping. This is why I'm replacing it, because this it's always the last one, right? I don't know why. So I might have to either, if I can't get this off, I might have to drill it out. All right, here's Plan B. Good old vice grips. So let's see if I can get it in here. I'm going to try to just go this way. I don't have as much torque, twisting torque this way, but it has more more contact with the vice grips on the head of the screw. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Turn, turn, turn. There we go. Okay, so here's the rail. Got it off. Realized when I took off the injectors, that one came out good, but this one has the O-rings still inside, so I popped those out. This is the stock FPR fuel pressure regulator, and it has more screws, which is wonderful. So that's the bad boy we're going to take off, and once we take this off, we can see what this looks like and see if it's even possible to put an AN fitting in there, because if the hole here is bigger than this, then we're kind of screwed because you can't put an AN fitting there. Just so you guys can see what the injectors look like, these were the 2 primaries, and I could have sworn that these had smaller injectors, but these apparently are the bigger injectors. I guess which I guess makes sense. When you open it up, more fuel dumps in. I don't know. Anyway, these are, as you can tell, these are not stock injectors, right? You can see the etching there, 1200 cc, what that means, and then this 9126, and these correlate to some papers that I found in the box of parts I received with the car for injectors. So the injectors were mapped and tested at these were 1200, and I think the other ones, which I guess the primaries, are at about 600. So we're running 600 and 1200. And as you can see, the top came off. It's in the rail, so I have to take that off and put it on. These look like they're oiled up and stuff, and these are never, I don't think ever been run in this engine. These are brand new, so I think these O-rings are fine. To just pop back in, and I might oil them up before I put it back in. But you know, you don't have to take these out to take your rail off. I did because I wanted to get rid of these crappy ass screws that were holding it in, but 2, I needed to verify that both of these had the 1200 cc rating on them. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into this, and we'll take this apart and see if we're able to do this, or I have to go back to good old eBay and buy another part. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this apart. Hopefully it is not going to be a beast like these things were, and hopefully I have the best camera angle for you guys here. Yeah, this ain't coming off ever. I think this is the first time it's ever come off since it was new. So I'm just gonna yank this out here. There you go. So that's the inside. Guess you can see that. So what you do, you just take this and you just put it in here and you start turning it. Just kidding. So we have to be very precise when we do this, because if we don't, we could cause damage to the fitting, and also the rail, and also you want the AN fitting to mount flush. Okay, so one thing I was interested in what I saw is if inside here, if there's any type of taper, and there is a taper. I don't know if once I do the tap, if that's going to remove that taper. It could very well do that, and it looks like I need to drill this out, because I don't think this is big enough on its own. see this. Nice, huh? Okay, let's put the fitting on. Let's go ahead and put this back in the vise. That, boys and girls, is how you modify your secondary rail. All right. All right. So now that I got this on, I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the injectors. Just make sure make sure they seat in here well. Much better than a screwdriver. Ready to go. Custom modified primary fuel rail. Sorry, secondary fuel rail. And we'll go ahead and reinstall this and get a new banjo fitting. Well, there you have it. I got the injectors back on. We now have the new hex for actually the primaries and the secondaries, and then there's a little stub for the AN fitting. I can't really do much with running the hose right now until we get the fittings for the actual AN fittings, twist lock fittings for the hose. Well, I hope that was a fun experience for you. Hope you learned something. I know I did. Next time we'll kind of go more into the build, and we'll finish up actually running lines. Mount the FPR. When that's done, we can then put the top of the engine on, do all the wiring and the routing, kind of button up the top so that we can move forward with all the other fun stuff. Thanks. See you next time.